Hello everyone, welcome to Barry's Book Reviews. This is episode number 14. Today's book is a short story by Park Min-gyu called Dinner with Buffett. The Buffett of the title is the famous American investor and philanthropist Warren Buffett. The story was translated by Jeon Seung-hee, who is a prolific translator. She's translated several stories in the Asia Publishers K-Fiction series. Today's book was actually the first book published in that series. It's a great collection, and Asia Publishers is still adding to it, and hopefully I'll review lots more stories from the series in future episodes. Jeon is actually a board member of Asia Publishers, and she also has 2 PhDs in English literature, one from Harvard and one from Seoul National University. Just as a little side note, some of you might have noticed that there's been some discussion and maybe even some controversy online on Twitter and other places about putting translators' names on the front of translated novels. And as someone who relies on the work of talented and capable translators to read all of these Korean novels, it seems like a very reasonable request to me. Happily, the K-Fiction series does put the translator's name on the book cover, so there's no problem there. Let's move on to today's writer. So, Park Min-gyu rose to fame in 2003 when he published his first 2 novels, Legend of the World's Superheroes and The Sammy Superstar's Last Fan Club. Both were published in 2003 and earned him the Munhak Dongne Offer Award and the Hangyeore Literary Prize, respectively. And I'm sure you'll agree that both those books have great titles, and that debuting with 2 award-winning novels in the same year is really quite impressive. Park was born in Ulsan, that's a small town in the southeast province of South Korea, in 1968. He graduated from Chungang University, where he studied creative writing. And as well as his novels, he's also famous for his short stories. He's written several short story collections, including Castella and Double. And the title story for Castella is actually available online if you just give it a Google. One of the things that critics and readers seem to love about his work is his unique sense of style and tone. His stories are often shot through with humour and can be very funny, often surreal, sometimes bizarre, and always very imaginative. He regularly writes about capitalism and consumerism and often features characters struggling to live some kind of meaningful life in a primarily capitalist world, capitalist society. He's also well known for his slightly eccentric appearance. So, for example, he frequently appears in public and at book readings wearing large goggles. And he's known to collect goggles, and on the cover of this book you can see a picture of him wearing some of these sort of Terry Gilliam or Tim Burton-ish goggles. He's loved by critics, readers, and fellow writers. So fellow novelist and short story writer Kim Young-ha praised Park, saying that, quote, his stories are all departures from the kinds of stereotypes that readily come to mind when one speaks of Korea or of Korean literature, but at the same time they show what Korean literature is like at present. I was lucky enough to host Park at a book club event and have dinner with him afterward, and I'm happy to confirm that he's as charming and intelligent and as eccentric as one would hope. So, which of his stories are we focusing on today, and how is it different from the stereotypes we sometimes find in Korean literature? So, Dinner with Buffett features Warren Buffett, the famous American billionaire, philanthropist, and investor. It depicts a bizarre day in the life of this famous American. The story begins in a traffic jam caused by an Occupy Wall Street protest. So around the time of the global financial crisis back in 2007, 2010. He's on his way to a meeting with the president. It isn't specifically stated which president. It could be George Bush or Obama, but you might pick up an inkling of which he's hinting at. The president reveals to Buffett that America and perhaps the world is facing some kind of extreme threat. It could be a war or an alien invasion, but whatever it is, it has the potential to reshape the current world order. This meeting with the president unsettles Warren. However, he has to rush across town for a different type of meeting. Every year he hosts a charity lunch in which the highest bidder gets to have a meal in a fancy restaurant with Warren and get some one-to-one investment advice, personal FaceTime with this legendary investor. However, this time the person who wins the right to the meal with Warren is a young Korean guy called An, who appears to be utterly uninterested in Warren's investment advice. Warren is left shaken by both of these encounters, and the story ends with him confused and reflecting on his place in the world. Now, Warren Buffett is not a stereotypical character that you would expect to find in a Korean short story. So what is Park doing with Dinner with Buffett? What is he trying to say about the extremely wealthy rich people like Warren Buffett and these other sort of symbols of extreme wealth? Lots of people have written about this story. If you look online, you'll see lots of reviews and articles, and most commenters say or argue that the story is essentially a critique of capitalism in the wake of the global financial crisis. The story contrasts Buffett with Anne. Park tells us about Buffett, how he rose from humble beginnings. He was selling gum when he was 5. He lived through the Great Depression, the Second World War, the oil crisis. He becomes the head of his first company, makes the cover of Time and Fortune magazines, and makes his first donation and becomes this renowned philanthropist. Buffett reflects that he is living in the great age of investment, yet at the same time he's wondering if the sun is beginning to set on this great age of acquisition. So he's thoroughly baffled by his encounter with Anne. Usually the people who win the annual lunch date are wealthy investors who donate to Buffett's charities, but Anne won the lottery and then used the winnings to get to the lunch date. He doesn't seem to want anything from Warren. He eats a McDonald's just before going to this very fancy and exclusive restaurant. He wears a hoodie. He works in a convenience store. And when Warren asks him if he wants to learn about investing, Anne says, "I'm fine, thanks." There's something a little Bartleby-ish about his indifference. Park does seem to be offering a critique of capitalism. We are held captive by money. Money is the motivation for many things that people do. Perhaps, however, some are waking up to the fact that the endless pursuit of wealth is destructive and ultimately can't protect you from the world. Perhaps Anne reflects the millennials who've given up on being as well off as their parents, and Warren reflects a set of ideals no longer pursued by the young. Overall, it's a thought-provoking and enjoyably strange story that demonstrates Park's rich imagination and gift for dreaming up unusual encounters and situations. And I'll just say one more thing about Park. So Park's contemporaries are big fans of his work as well. He's very popular with other writers. And I'll give you another great comment from Kim Young-ha. Kim says that he wanted to steal Park's sentences. Park has written peculiar, delightful sentences that have never existed before in Korean literature. And I think that's key to understanding why everyone loves his stories so much, including this one. He has a unique way of seeing the world. The tone, style, and sensibility at work in his stories seem genuine and original. His work's filled with humor and depth, and there are always unusual connections and insights and ways of looking at things. He's an appealing writer for all of these reasons. Today's book was Dinner with Buffett by Park Min-gyu.